I was a complete atheist. I thought, you die, it's black, you're gone. I totally understand people who don't have a belief system or believe in the spirit world. I was one of those people. I get it.
Today we have Dr. Lottie Valentine on the program, and I've heard you had a couple near-death experiences. Could you please share it with us, please?
Yes, I'd love to. It was June 28th, 1992, and we lived in Huntington Beach, California at the time. I went into labor at like 2 o'clock in the morning. We get into the labor room, and a 7.4 earthquake hits. And we lose all the power. So it's just pitch black, and the rumbling of the earthquake. The life is flashing before my eyes, and I'm thinking, this is it. We're all gonna die. The earthquake stopped. We still didn't have any power, and my labor stopped. Because if you're in labor and you're gonna be eaten by a lion, your body is gonna say, let me get you to safety, and then you will continue to give birth. And like about half an hour later, the contractions started back up, and I gave birth to my daughter. As soon as they give me the baby, I have this excruciating pain. So I yell for my husband, take the baby, take the baby. And that was the first time I hemorrhaged. So all this blood comes out, and they put me on IV drip, and I stay in the hospital like 2 days. And then they say, okay, well, it looks like the bleeding has stopped, so we're going to send you on your way. 10 days later, I use the restroom, and this huge blood clot comes out. I get to the ER, and they do a manual inspection, and they say, well, there isn't much blood coming out right now, so we're going to send you home. The next evening at home, same thing happens again. We go to the doctor. He does the same thing, manual inspection, no labs, no ultrasound. Well, there isn't much blood coming out right now, so we're going to send you home. Now, this is the third time I'm hemorrhaging in 3 days and losing a lot of blood. So we go back to the ER, and again, doctor comes in, manual inspection. Oh, doesn't seem to be bleeding that much now. We'll just keep you for observation for a little bit. They close the door, and there I am lying on the table, and I started bleeding again. So I'm thinking, oh, at least I'm in the ER. So I'm lying on this table, and I'm not thinking much of it, just glad I'm in the ER. The timing of this nurse coming to check on me was life-saving. She opens the door, her jaw just drops to the floor. She's just, gasping like, oh my God, like she sees all the blood. And she calls on the loudspeaker, OBGYN, stat to the ER. OBGYN, stat to the ER. And this middle-aged physician comes running in full force, says, what's going on? And I said, I've been bleeding since Wednesday, and this is the fourth time I'm bleeding since then. So he understood right away how much blood I must have been losing. Another large blood clot comes out. And I try to sit up and tell him, so I say, I don't feel good. And he knows exactly what's happening because he knows how much blood I've been losing. So he just pushes me back down on the table, and at this point, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. So my eyes are closed, and I can hear all the people coming into the room. And I have a nurse on my right that's putting on the blood pressure cuff, and a nurse on my left trying to place an IV. The nurse on my right is coding my blood pressure, and I start feeling like I'm just falling, like I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. I know that I'm dying. The complete atheist that I was and did not believe in anything, I said, well, all that teachings when I was 14, if there is a God or anything out there, this is my only hope at this point. So I pray to God to save my life, and I say, I have 3 children under the age of 6. They need a mother. And it was shortly after that I was just pulled out of my body. Like 1 second I was there, and the next second I wasn't. And I find myself floating a couple of feet above my body. My first thought was, how could I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? How can I be me? My body's down there, and here I am outside. But I'm still me. And I didn't get to be in this state very long, because as quickly as I had been pulled out, I got pulled back in. And so here I am back in my body, and everybody's cheering. I can hear everybody clapping and cheering as I'm coming back, because they saved my life. Then the doctor said, I'm going to have to give you blood. And so the first thing out of my mouth was, do you have to give me blood? And he said, do you have a religious belief that, you can't take blood? And I said, no, but everybody that's getting blood finding out they have AIDS, 5, 6 years later. And he said, I'll see what I can do. They kept me for observation, for like 2 days. As I'm lying in the hospital room that next day, I hear my sister-in-law in the left corner of my ceiling, and she had just passed away about 10 days earlier from lung cancer. And she said, everything's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, yesterday I was outside my body, and now I think I hear my sister-in-law talking to me. Either I'm losing it or this is all true, but then I can't tell anyone, because if I tell someone, they're going to think I'm crazy and they're going to lock me up in the mental ward and I will never see my kids again. So they sent me this nurse to check on me, and she said, did anything unusual happen yesterday in the ER? Because she was probably well aware of near-death experiences, and I had never heard of it. I did not know what that was. So I just looked at this nurse and said, no, nothing happened. So they should have given me blood technically, but they said, you're making blood fairly quickly, so we're going to send you home. You're not going to feel too good for the next couple of months because you're very anemic. I have very few memories. I think I slept for, 6, 7 weeks. And then my watch stopped, and I finally made it to a Target to get a new watch. I wore the watch for about 5 days and it stopped. So I returned the watch, I take another one, same watch, wear it for 5 days, and it stops. And I said, wow, bad quality control. I'm going to choose a different brand this time. Same thing happens again. I wear it for 5 days, it stops. And then 2 months later, in May, I walked by the television and the television turned on. And I said, okay, the kids, they're probably playing a prank. They got the clicker. No, the clicker was on the coffee table. Kids are outside playing with the neighbors. So I'm thinking, maybe somebody has the same TV set I have. They aimed the clicker at their TV, but it accidentally went out their window and in through my window, turned on my TV, because the scientist that I am, I needed proof or explanation. So I go and ring 8 neighbors' doorbells and see if anybody's home. And the people that were home said they were not watching TV. I walk back in and the TV turns back on. So there was a lot of these electrical interferences. And so then it's the fall. And in the middle of the night, I know that my uncle is in the ceiling above the end of the bed. And he's telling me that he's passed on to the other side and he's transitioning over. I figured my mom was going to call me from Sweden the next day because it was her brother. And nobody called me. So weird, because I know he was here. Then finally, on the 3rd day, my mom calls and she says, I have something sad to share with you. And I said, yeah, I know. Your brother passed away 3 days ago. And it was just dead silence on the other end. And she said, wow, you're just like your grandmother, meaning her mom. This second near-death experience happened about 2 years later. And it was in the middle of the night. And I wake up, my head is pounding. I take my head off the pillow. And then, like in a split second, just like the first time in the ER, my soul is just outside. But this was such a different experience. Just the feeling of tumbling through darkness or tumbling through space. And then I get to this place that I call the mid station, only because I had this awareness that it was like levels below me and levels above me, and this is just the floor I got off. So imagine going into a skyscraper with 100 floors, and then you push the button on the 50th floor, you get off on the 50th floor. You know you have floors below you. You don't know what's on the floors. You know there are floors above you, but you don't know what's on those floors because you're not on those floors. But it was that kind of a feeling, like I have no idea what's on those other levels. Maybe somebody else has had a near-death experience and been exposed to that. But there was this feeling that there were floors above me and below me. So I get to this level, and the first thing I hear is the most beautiful music that you could ever imagine. And I'm wondering, where's this music coming from? And so I look to my right and I see a little log cabin. Literally, it looks like a Swedish sauna. And I'm thinking, well, the music might be coming from that cabin. So I look inside, but it's empty. So then I kind of look to my left and I see another log cabin, which is a mirror image of the one on the right. And I open the door and I look inside, but it's empty. Then I become aware of this kind of a growing light, almost like a fog rolling in. Imagine standing in a fog with a spotlight shining in the fog. It's the brightest, whitest light you can imagine. And as I'm standing in this light, I turn around. Then I see the music is coming from the light, but in the light, there is an outline of angels. And the music is coming from these angels, which I did not believe in, right? So it goes against my own belief system. But being in this light, I also understand that I am with divine source. There's a knowing that we are part of that divine source. We carry that light within us. We are that. We are part of it. And we return to that unconditional love and support when we pass on, when we transition. But then I become aware of, I used to call them entities, then I call them spirit guides. I don't have any memory of seeing like a face or anything. It's more just an energetic presence. They are communicating with each other and I'm hearing them because it's all telepathic communication. And the spirit guide on my right says to the other one, what is she doing here? She can't be here. She has to go back. And I say, no, wait a second. How can I be outside my body and still be me? How does this work? Now, I've spent 2 years now contemplating this. And the spirit guide on my left says, well, if I told you, you wouldn't remember. But you will remember this. All of a sudden, it's like I see a picture. It's like a movie screen appears out of nowhere. But it's like I'm standing on the moon and I'm looking down from the outer space on the earth. But around the earth, I called it the silvery glittery fishnet because it was this diamond-shaped silvery glittery net around the earth in this image. And I called it the fishnet because I grew up in Sweden, and so I would row the little boat for my grandmother and she would lay fish nets in the ocean and catch fish for the family. And so when she lifted those nets out of the ocean in the early morning sun, that diamond-shaped fishnet with the little water droplets, they would sort of shimmer and glitter in the sunlight. So I see this silver glittery fishnet, and the spirit guide says, everything on earth is connected to each other, but everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And with that knowledge, I get sent back. And literally, it's what I work with today when I work with ancestral healing for people, because we are all connected and we're connected to our ancestors, whether we like it or not. So I'm going to skip forward to 2004. I'm looking on the computer thinking, well, when I go back to work, I don't want to go back to programming and systems analyst. I need to work, helping people heal. I'm not really sure what that education is going to look like. And so I find this medical school online and it says naturopathic medical school. There's only 5 medical schools in the United States. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. You learn not just regular medicine, but also acupuncture, homeopathy, botanical medicine, and your tool bag is so much bigger. You don't just learn pharmaceuticals. And I said, I can't do that. I'm in my 40s now. Even if I do all the prereqs, there's no guarantee I'm going to get in. And so I walk to the kitchen, the spirit world drops in, and they say, you have to go to medical school and be a naturopathic physician. You have to bring messages to the people, messages and healing to the people. I'm like, what do you mean messages and healing? Didn't make any sense at all. And then they said, oh, and you have to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. So I said, what do you mean writing a book? What am I supposed to write about? And they just said, when the time is right, we will tell you. For now, just focus on getting your medical degree. The message was so direct, so strong. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to do it. So I did all the prereqs and applied into medical school in 2012. I only applied to 2 schools. I was accepted at both and went to med school when I was 54 and then graduated 2016. And then as soon as I graduated, I meet this woman and she says, I'm a medium and somebody is here who wants to give you a message. And I just kind of chuckled and I said, sure, I'm open. Just bring it. Like, tell me, what do you see? What do you hear? Thinking there is no way this woman is going to get anything right about me. First of all, I wasn't even raised in this country. She talks about rowing the boat and laying the fish nets and all the stuff that you wouldn't even make up, right? So the message is that I have to go to Arthur Findlay College and study mediumship. And I said, I can't do that. I can't. I mean, I just graduated. I don't even have my license yet. And she says, no. She keeps telling you, you have to go there. Finally, I said, okay, I don't know how this is going to work. Like, I'm going to be in a residency. I don't even know if I can get time off, but I'm going to figure out a way to do it. 6 months later, I'm at Arthur Findlay College, and I have my first reading with one of the teachers. And she says, oh, I have your mother here. And she tells me you're writing a book. Oh, and your mother says, you're to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. So the exact same message I had received in 2004, I received again in March of 2017. And I have gotten that message from 3 more professional mediums. They all say the exact same message. You're to write 2 books. No, wait, 3. You know, it's incredible. And we all have this gift. We all have intuitive abilities within ourselves. We are all part of this light. We all carry the light within us. We all have it within us. It's just a matter of opening up that channel.
Is there anything else that you want people to get from your experience?
The most important is that life is eternal. The body that we live in is the house for the spirit, right? So when you think of your computer, you got your hardware in the computer doesn't work. It's completely useless unless you have software, right? The software is going to run the computer. Well, your soul is the software that runs your body. When you think of your computer, you store everything in the cloud, right? Nowadays, we store everything in the cloud because if the computer crashes, we just get a new computer and then we download everything from the cloud. And we do it with our phones all the time. We get a new phone, we download it from the cloud, everything is restored, and within an hour, you got everything back. Well, when you think of your body, it's pretty much the same thing. The body is your computer hard drive, your soul, your spirit. That is your software. But you are also stored in the cloud. Just like your computer, just like your phone is stored in the cloud, your computer stuff is stored in the cloud. You're also stored in the cloud. And so when your body dies, when your body decays, just like your computer, you're still in the cloud. You got all your experiences with you. It's all stored in the cloud. Then you say, you know what? I want to come back to Earth. I'm going to have a life where, I'm learning this now because I've had these other lives, but I never had an experience doing this. And then you come into your body, you download all those experiences. And we've all been the bad person and the nice person. We've all been male and female. We've been all different kinds of races. We've lived all over the world. Once you get to that understanding that we are all connected, we are all one, to have all these wars and racism, and it's just ridiculous because we're all the same in the end. So if people say, oh, I hate this nationality, maybe you will be that in your next life because you're hating on them now. So in the next life, you're going to go and be the hated one, because that is also what you're putting out. Because everything that we put out is also reflected back to us. We know that we pass trauma on the DNA, and so we can see the Holocaust survivors, the epigenetics change, and we have studies that show that we pass trauma down on specific genes. So if your grandparents fought in World War II, yeah, you might have a fear of sirens, but you've never had an experience or a scary event yourself that involved sirens, but you have a fear of sirens. Well, that could be from your grandfather who fought in the war. So we pass these things down through the generations, and working a lot with ancestral healing and help people heal, either as a medical intuitive or ancestral healer. It's fascinating to see how that affects us. But I would say, as much as I would like to say there's no karma, there definitely is karma, because you see it when you work with people in this way.
How do people find out more about you?
My website is the best way, and that's just Dr. Lotte, so DRLOTTE.com. You have all different kinds of sessions, like mediumship if you want to connect with someone in the spirit world, messages from your spirit guides, which is a really fun one if you're looking for direction in your own life, and then ancestral healing. It doesn't matter if it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, My book is called Med School After Menopause, and it's really about my own spiritual journey. How did I transform from being this atheist to trusting in the spirit world? And I called it Med School After Menopause because it's never, ever too late to change your life.